But now let's dive into our feature story of the day. Violent to the upside. This catalyst will send Bitcoin to explode by up to 1,486%, says Strike CEO Jack Mallers. So let's break down this latest prediction from Jack. Here you go. CEO of Bitcoin's Lightning Network wallet, Strike. And I'm curious, how many of you are using the Strike wallet for Lightning payments? Let me know in the chat. Mallers is predicting that the flagship crypto reach a 7-figure price during the current cycle. Got my attention. Mahler says in an appearance in the David Lin YouTube channel that the efforts to save the bond market can lead to a looser monetary policy, consequently triggering Bitcoin to appreciate by between 297% and 1,486% from the current level. Now we're talking. Quoting Mahler's here, the bond market is in trouble for really arguably the first time in modern financial history. Bondholders are getting absolutely demolished and crushed. Now who owns bonds? All of our banks. So our bank deposits aren't even there because the bonds that were purchased with my deposits are underwater. And so if central banks and governments are going to try and save that market, the amount of liquidity that's needed is going to send assets very high. So if that happens, it is impossible to speculate on an asset as scarce as Bitcoin. But I think $250,000 to $1 million is the imagination I have in that range of just how big this can get. And that's based on all the liquidity that's going to be required to make this market solvent. So that's his prediction for this cycle, family. 250,000 bear scenario, $1 million bull scenario. Does it sound familiar? My bear scenario for this cycle is 222,000. My bull scenario is 750,000. Pretty similar. Now, according to the Strike CEO, the price is the most accurate key performance indicator concerning Bitcoin adoption, as he shares here. What price tells me is a rather accurate measurement of how much of the world is using Bitcoin as money. And so I expect more of the world to take on Bitcoin as money, whether it be for any form of use case or value to them, because it is so appealing and solving so many different problems. So I expect the adoption of Bitcoin as a monetary unit to go up. And then against the dollar in particular and other fiat currencies, I expect it to be violent to the upside. Violence to the upside equals peace and harmony and love and prosperity for the rest of the world. You already know. Put any country on a Bitcoin standard and you'll see what happened, just like with El Salvador, thy savior. Let me know if you agree or disagree with Jack Mallers and his bullish price prediction of Bitcoin hitting between $250,000 and $1 million per coin for this particular cycle. And to watch this actual interview he did making the bullish prediction, check the show notes below the video and in the description. And let's discuss a little further this $1 million Bitcoin price action, shall we? Now, obviously, this cycle, things are a lot different than all the previous cycles that come before us. For the first time in Bitcoin history, we overtook the previous all-time high pre-halving. The three previous halvings before the most recent, we have never seen that. It was always proceeding after the halving. We break out and reach the new cycle high. So that's clearly different. We also have the institutional adoption, which never existed 4 years ago on the previous cycle, since we had the ETF inflows go live officially January 11th of this year. We now have the Hong Kong ETFs going live in like 4 more days. That's going to bring more institutional adoption. And then we have more institutes, you know what I mean, getting into Bitcoin, whether directly or indirectly. Many of the largest asset managers in the world are already, you know what I mean, diversified into Bitcoin. For example, BlackRock being the largest with over 10 trillion in assets under management. They now hold over 272,000 Bitcoin, and it took them 3 months. MicroStrategy, the first publicly traded company to put the biddies on the balance sheet by their fearless leader, Mike Saylor. They already have over 220,000 Bitcoin. It took them 4 years to accomplish that. So BlackRock just achieved in literally 3 months what took MicroStrategy more than 4 years. Also, collectively, just the 10 ETF issuers out of the United States, they now collectively hold over 850,000 Bitcoin. And Coinbase is the custodian on virtually all of them except Fidelity, which is the only asset manager actually doing self-custody, which is interesting. But a lot is happening right now. There's a very finite, limited supply of the Bitcoin. The majority of the Bitcoin supply is in the hands of the long-term hodlers and the whales. The smart money is accumulating because they're smart money. We all know what is about to occur. We just had the halving a few days ago. Typically, after the halving, Bitcoin goes on a run up anywhere from, up to 18 months after. We may hit the all-time high for the cycle. A lot of speculation. Some say we can hit that this year. Some say this could be the super cycle, considering things are much different. For example, previous cycle driven primarily off of retail. This cycle thus far driven primarily off of the ETF inflows, right? Also, regional banking crisis. Remember that happening last year, first quarter. It took Bitcoin out from the sub 30,000 level to above 30. And then once we got the news of the ETFs from the likes of BlackRock and these asset managers, that took Bitcoin to a whole new spectrum. We have already tapped 74,000-ish this year, about a month and a half ago, mid-March, we hit 73,800, which is currently the local high. Once we re-enter price discovery mode, there's no telling how high we can go. FOMO is very real. We have FOMOs now from other countries and nation states acquiring biddies on the low. Some would argue that Mr. 100, who has been purchasing over 100 Bitcoin a day very persistently and now has over 50,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet, that can be a nation that just hasn't officially announced it. In fact, according to Max Kaiser, his top contestant or candidate for that would be Abu Dhabi out of the UAE. There's also been a lot of talk with countries of the Middle East, such as the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Iran, Qatar, doubling down, purchasing some Bitcoin or transferring their sovereign wealth fund into Bitcoin. Qatar was meeting with Bukele. You saw their jet, with Bukele. You saw Jeff Bezos was with Michael Saylor. Could Jeff Bezos, one of the richest on paper in the world, already invested into Bitcoin, being he is obviously worth hundreds of billions of dollars? What if, hypothetically speak, just thinking out loud, what if Amazon were to adopt Bitcoin, right, for all their retail, being the largest retailer in the world? Think about that. What would that do? How much money can be saved by retailers around the world if they were to use a Bitcoin standard? Bitcoin transactions, because the transaction is the settlement. You can be saving potentially whatever the transaction fees are for the payment rails of Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. Maybe it's 2%, maybe it's 2.5%, whatever it is. Imagine millions of transactions at a Walmart being processed in Bitcoin, saving them literally, hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. It'd be an insane amount of money. It's like a win-win. So I think eventually everything flows into Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the ultimate savings. It's the ultimate store of value. It's the ultimate hedge against corrupt governments, in which nobody trusts nowadays. The writing is on the wall, right? It's a hedge against inflation. It's a hedge against deflation. It's an insurance policy. It's a flight to quality. It's a flight to safety. It's immutable. You can't change it. It's unconfiscatable. It's incorruptible. No corrupt government or politician, and give me a hashtag FJB while we're speaking about corrupt politicians, can change that, right? They can try to scare you. They can try to go after self-custodied wallets. They can do anything they want to do at the end of the day, but you cannot censor free speech. And Bitcoin is protected under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, in which they are trying to destroy. Mark my words. They're trying to destroy our freedoms that we were granted and blessed with in this beautiful country. And they're doing it slowly but surely. So just say no to the overreaching of these corrupt governments around the world. We know what they want. They want war. They want more money printing. They love their fiat monopoly money because they can control it. You know what they despise? Bitcoin, because it separates money from the state. It is the only form of money in which they cannot control. They hate it. They hate it. Bitcoin is thy state's number one enemy. So anything they say, I don't believe them. I watch what they do, right? I can see someone's true intentions by their actions. What they say is irrelevant because they're professional liars, they're professional manipulators, and they're professional con artists. They're professional hucksters. You heard it straight up. And it is what it is. But back to the price action. Bitcoin will hit $1 million just for the fact it's perfect money, right? It's perfect money. It's pristine collateral. For that reason alone, Bitcoin will hit $1 million because you can't print more of it. And as long as you have crazy mofos like myself and like yourselves who are unwilling to sell your Satoshis and hand it over to the BlackRock crooks, as long as you got these folks on the planet, Bitcoin will continue to rise, right? Because it's going to become more and more desirable. It's the only true money. Everything else, monopoly money. Who cares? Even gold, they'll just keep digging and finding more in the ground. For Christ's sake, volcanoes are spewing gold, right? Places in Africa, they're finding mass amounts of gold. How much gold do you think is in the ocean? Well, here's the question. How much Bitcoin is in the ocean? Maybe some, you guys lost it in a boating accident, but I digress. Anyways, family, I appreciate y'all. When do you feel the Bitcoin price will hit Jack Mallers' target? $250,000 to $1 million this cycle? Let me know in the comments. Holla.